Hey, Emmanuel, what you got for us, my friend?
Hey, how's it going?
Good, man.
I actually got three questions, but I'm trying to decide which one. Two of them might be quick. One's probably like a little
Okay,
longer, but I'm not trying to
let's
be
try it out.
selfish. Um, uh, I'll go with this one.
Okay.
Our agency, when you the policy in our agency on canine scans states two things. One, that you will tell your canine handler that responds your reasonable suspicion, and two, that you cannot ask consent to search even if you have a canine alert, or vice versa. Like if you ask consent, you cannot also call for a canine. That's just what the policy says.
Yep.
Our canine handlers say, do not tell us anything. You call us, it is your job to articulate reasonable suspicion. We don't want to know anything because of the fear. And I guess the question is, the fear is telling your canine handler your reasonable suspicion like a way for the defense attorney to argue, oh, you told the canine handler what you got, so therefore he definitely made his dog alert.
Oh, I see. The queuing issues, you know. Um, okay, let's talk about this consent issue first. John, what are your thoughts on that? It's one or the other, or do you think both are in play?
So I'm struggling with this concept. He's saying like the policy is saying that if you have reasonable suspicion, don't ask for consent. If you have consent, don't make a
I
reasonable
think it's one or the other, right, Emmanuel? Isn't it one of you have to pick one?
So our policy states, then again, it's our policy. It
Yeah.
states that if you ask the operator or owner of the vehicle for consent to search, and they consent and say yes, I agree, you cannot then call for a cane, like, because I know a lot of like interdiction
Oh,
officers, or like, they'll ask for consent and also call for the canine. So then it'll be like two things to argue in court. Like, oh, you didn't have valid consent. Oh, but we had a canine alert, you know?
all right. But I think I'm seeing the bewilderment on John's face too, because here, let me just make sure we got this right, because I'm a little confused too. If what happens, okay, you ask the driver for consent. Now, are you asking the driver for consent to run that canine around the car, or are you saying, hey, can I search your car for drugs?
Uh, can I search your car for drugs?
And then we're still going to call the canine? Like the guy's going to,
Yes.
wait. See, that seems kind of weird because I can tell you, John's going to jump in on this, but I can tell you that that's a problem because the canine, like when you ask for consent to search, the scope of the search should include a canine if that's what you're looking to do. So in other words, if you say, "Hey, can I search your car for drugs?" and you don't even search it, and you just wait for that canine, he may not have even actually agreed to have that dog. I'm sorry, to have that dog sniff the car. That's an issue, right? What is the scope of search? What would a reasonable person believe? If they're not, in other words, if they're never told, hey, can I run this dog around your car and wait for 5 minutes before it gets here? That may not actually be valid consent. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It's kind of weird, right? John, anything to add to that?
So yeah, I'm struggling with it because always like when I see weird things in policy like this, I say like, what is the point? Like what legal direction were they given that they implemented this policy? Is it something like we're trying to not use the dogs? Is it trying that we're trying to not undermine the dogs? The reliability of the dog. If why are like we're basically saying don't stack your justifications.
which we
Uh,
which we don't teach here at Blue to Gold. We teach at Blue to Gold. We teach stack justifications. We like multiple reasons to search. We
yeah.
like having the motor vehicle exception and consent. It's something to be confident in because you can be like, well, why would you ask for consent if you have probable cause? Because I want multiple reasons to do what I'm doing. Number one, it can give me a broader scope of search. Number two, it gives the prosecutor another reason to justify my actions. Number three, it's part of community relations, getting their buy-in and what I'm doing. But you get my point. So, John, this is my intuition on this, and it's not. I have seen, and you have too, right? I've seen where agencies don't want you asking for agencies don't want you asking for consent sometimes, and then they say no, and they say, okay, fine, I'll call the dog, and then they change their minds. I know some people don't like that. Like then you still search, but this doesn't seem like that. This is kind of a weird one. I've never heard of a policy telling you that you. I don't know. This is weird.
Sure, tell me. we have Power DMS, the great almighty Power DMS. So
Yeah.
some of the policies I've read, I pointed out that this is completely like unconstitutional. But anyways, not trying to put any agency on
No, no,
blast,
no,
but
that's okay. No, no, no. In constitutional, unconstitutional, or just a weird policy. But let's move on. So the first thing is, okay, we know that you can ask for consent, and if they deny consent, you can call the canine. There's no problem there. We agree with that, right, Emmanuel?
yes,
Okay, and that's probably a good move, by the way. You probably should ask for consent and just get this thing over with versus calling the canine out. Let's talk about this next issue, which is not telling the canine handler the reason for the reasonable suspicion. John, your thoughts?
So I'm good with it, and I'm siding with the canine officers here. I just kind of think it's funny that they're showing up and saying violate policy. Do not tell me what your grounds is for reasonable suspicion, right? And the reason why they don't want to know, I understand, is because they want to take away that defense argument that the only reason why the dog indicated where he did was because the handler had that knowledge that you saw or smelled or you got abnormal nervousness, whatever it was, off that front seat passenger. And then lo and behold, you told the handler that, and then guess what? The canine alerted right there, right? And really, at the end of the day, what you know will ultimately be imparted to the canine handler, right? Under the collective knowledge doctrine or the fellow officer rule, it's AKA the fellow officer rule. So really, if you have RS, then it's like the canine handler has RS as well. And as long as you are articulating it effectively, your knowledge will be imputed to them so they can run the dog. They're not going to be running afoul of Rodriguez by prolonging the stop if you have that RS.
Okay, that's cool. All right, another question, Emmanuel, or are we good?
I'm sorry, I might have. I think I'm a little confused. So it's fine that we're not telling our canine handler the reasonable suspicion, right? Just call the dog, hey, alert, hey, good to go. And you're saying that regardless, it's the collective knowledge doctrine.
No, no,
Yeah.
no. It wouldn't. Well, this wouldn't be the collective knowledge in this case because you're not. Well, I'm sorry. It is the collective knowledge doctrine. We call it horizontal collective knowledge. But look, that's kind of getting. We can explain what that means. But at the end of the day, there's no constitutional requirement that the canine handler know what your reasonable suspicion is. And at the end of the day, the only one that needs to really testify to a reasonable suspicion is the primary officer, which is what John's saying. We don't need to drag in the handler. If we have reasonable suspicion, and your primary officer that called the handler convinces the court they had reasonable suspicion for narcotic activity, then the handler does his thing. I mean, that's as simple as that. And
Right.
that reasonable suspicion is imputed to the handler. In other words, it's presumed that if the primary officer has reasonable suspicion, they have reasonable suspicion, even though they don't know exactly what that reasonable suspicion is. So the community or the collective knowledge doctrine comes in, or the fellow officer rule. Like east of the Mississippi seems to be the fellow officer rule. West is collective knowledge. But anyway, that's just a legal doctrine that will save the handler from doing what he or she is doing.
Got it.
Kind of weird. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, cool. All right, good stuff. Good stuff.